This is a continuation from the video you see on the screen, which I will link in the description, where Pope Francis mentioned an image during the ecumenical prayer vigil. If you haven't seen that, it might be helpful to watch it. In that video, I said I would do some research on the stigmata, and if I found anything, there might be a part 2. This is part 2. The word stigmata is the plural noun of the word stigma. The word stigma has two different definitions. The first is a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. The second definition says in the Christian tradition, marks corresponding to those left on Jesus' body by the crucifixion and to have been impressed by divine favor on the bodies of St. Francis of Assisi and others. Blue Letter Bible shows stigma as part of high Xi stigma. That verse is found in Revelation 13. The scripture is, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666." A stigma is a ligature of the Greek letters sigma and tau. The definition of ligature is a thing used for tying or binding something tightly, and a tau is the 19th letter of the Greek alphabet. It is both an uppercase or lowercase letter T. St. Francis of Assisi went to the highest place in Mount Alvernia in honor of Michaelmas. That's like Christmas, except it's a day in honor of the Archangel Michael. St. Francis of Assisi had renounced his worldly possessions for Christ. He went on a 40-day fast in honor of St. Michael, and he begged to share in the sufferings of Christ. Facing the east, he prayed, asking that in his soul and body he would experience the pain Christ endured in the Passion. There is a biblical reference about praying facing the east, and that's found in Ezekiel chapter 8. Verse 15 begins with, "Then he said to me, Have you seen this, O Son of Man? You will still see greater abominations than these." And he brought me into the inner court of the house of the Lord, and behold, at the entrance of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs to the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, worshiping the sun toward the east. There are some things I learned about the stigma while researching this, and I wanted to share those things. According to one documentary, a beautiful luminous figure appeared holding a violin. Francis of Assisi knelt with his arms outstretched. A great flame appeared over his head. There was dazzling light, and a flaming figure with 6 wings nailed to a cross of fire. 2 flaming wings rose up, 2 others outward, and 2 more covered the figure, as you can see in this picture. It's said the stigmata is a miraculous appearance of the wounds of Christ. St. Francis of Assisi said he experienced them on his feet, his hands, and his side as though it were pierced by a lance. He died 2 years after this happened. A seraphim is a 6-winged fiery angel or a heavenly being who surrounds God as he sits upon his throne and worships God continually. This event is said to have had a picture of Christ on the cross, but appearing as a seraphim angel. St. Francis of Assisi said he felt the burning sensation in his hands as the impression of the wounds of Christ were burned into him. One of the things I found particularly surprising is it is an incredible honor in Catholicism to receive these marks on your body. One quote said, "Francis was totally united in body and soul to the suffering of the Lord. The marks on his body were the final seal of his unconditional love for Christ and all of creation. It was a divine sign." Another quote said, "This comes about as one's intensity of life, of prayer, and a desire for union with God. Validation of Christ is present in the world and manifest his sufferings in the bodies of people who had wounds. It's proof positive he has not abandoned us and is with us in his sufferings. It gives meaning and value to our sufferings." Another interesting quote was that Francis understood it meant not by martyrdom, but by the consuming fire of the soul, he was to be transformed into the express image of the crucified Christ. Let that sink in. He was to be transformed into the express image of the crucified Christ. It was said he heard words from Christ expressing this, but he did not reveal this while he was alive. A brother reported that St. Francis of Assisi had told him, "Christ said, 'No, what I have done to you is I have given you the stigmata as an insignia of my passion, that you be my standard bearer. On the day of my death, I descended into hell, and by virtue of this, my stigmata delivers all the souls in my hand there. So I grant to you every year on the anniversary of your death, you may go to purgatory and take with you to the glory of paradise all the souls of the others. Friars, minors, sisters, the penitent, and the wise, others you find there that have been specially delivered to you that soul. You may be conformed to me in death as you have been to me in life." It was after this experience St. Francis of Assisi wrote Canticle of the Creatures. This has been referenced by the current Pope. I won't read all of Canticle of the Creatures, but so you get an idea of the result of this experience, here are some of the highlights. He wrote, "Praised be to you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir, Brother, Son." He also wrote, "Praised be you, my Lord, through Sister Moon and the stars. In heaven you formed them clear and precious and beautiful. Praised be you, my Lord, through Sister Water, who is very useful and humble and precious and chaste." He goes on then speaking of Brother Fire, Sister Mother Earth, and Sister Bodily Death. I wanted to point out a possible connection to a statement in the book of Revelation. That would be Revelation 10, verse 7. "But in the days when the seventh angel is about to sound his trumpet, the mystery of God will be accomplished, just as he announced to his servants, the prophets." There were numerous references to Francis of Assisi discussing the mystery of God, the mystery of how to love, the mysteries of Bethlehem, and the mystery of the Passion. In a writing called The Mirror of Perfection, a biography by St. Francis's friend, Brother Leo of Assisi, St. Francis of Assisi was told that he would occupy Lucifer's seat in heaven. This screenshot is from CatholicismHasTheAnswer.com. It says, "Now there is one very special throne, that of Lucifer, who was the greatest of the angels, and thus would have had the most glorious throne. This throne was to be given to the greatest saint that ever lived, and who most certainly was the most greatly devoted to Mary. From a vision of one of St. Francis's companions, it is believed that none other than he was given this throne." That statement alone has answered some of the questions I myself have had about the Catholic Church. Questions such as this piece of, shall we say, artwork and the following clip. I'm now left with more questions than answers, but I do have a few observations. The piercing on the side would normally be a fatal wound. However, he lived. There's also fire being called down from heaven in the sight of man, in this case, St. Francis of Assisi, as the wounds of Christ, so they say, are burned into his hands and his side. Some of the depictions of the seraphim angels also show the two wings above the head kind of resembling two horns like a lamb. And of course, we know Christ is the Lamb. Those things do add a few new puzzle pieces on the table. On the screen are a list of people who have been claimed to have received the stigmata. Padre Pio was one of them, and this is a picture of him. The Bible tells us there will be lying signs and wonders. We do not want to be deceived. Using images from the Shroud of Turin, they were colorized and brought to life. Using AI, they were made to speak and breathe. The deception could be great. I would like to close with an example of deception. This Bible verse was circulated online and was met with many amens, thumbs up, and shares. The verse it quoted is Jesus said, "When you see Israel surrounded by enemies on all sides, look up, your deliverance is near." It was quoting Luke chapter 81, verse 20. One problem with that is that's not what the verse says. What the verse says is, "But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation has come near." The second problem with that is there is no Luke chapter 81. Be not deceived.